The phone rang just as I was stacking boxes in the living room. I didn't recognize the number, but the voice on the other end belonged to the former owner of our house. "I forgot to disconnect the camera in the living room," they said. "I saw what your father and your brother did while you were at the base. I've saved the footage for you." You won't believe what I caught. I dropped the tape recorder I was holding, it clattered against the floor. My hands trembled more from disbelief than fear. I stared at the walls, the new paint and furniture now feeling like a thin veneer over something fragile, something that might already be cracking. I remembered the last week, the unpacking, the endless errands, the laughter that now sounded hollow. Quietly, almost instinctively, I felt the old unease return. Something had always felt off in the way my father looked at me, the way my brother lingered in doorways. But I'd brushed it aside. We were a family, after all. The footage sat on my laptop for hours. I kept hovering over the file, my cursor trembling between open and delete. Anxiety tightened in my chest like a knot I couldn't untee. I didn't want to see, and yet I had to. Finally, I pressed play. It wasn't shocking in a cinematic sense, no screaming, no betrayal of law or morality. Just ordinary moments. Ordinary conversations, small gestures, laughter, but framed in a way that made me feel alien. The camera captured things I had never noticed. My father rolling his eyes at my brother when he thought no one was watching, the brief smirk of judgment when I entered the room. Small, trivial things, and yet they hit with the weight of a secret truth. I paused the video, hands shaking. My chest tightened. It was as if the air in the room had changed. Became heavier, filled with the knowledge that I now held power they would never know I possessed. That knowledge was uncomfortable, isolating. I wanted to call them out, confront them, demand explanations, but I couldn't. The words felt hollow before I even spoke them. Instead, I let the silence grow. I moved through the house differently, aware now that every gesture, every glance, every smile had a double edge. The house that had been ours, shared, familiar, became a quiet theater of observation. The former owner called again a few days later. They were calm, almost matter of fact, explaining how the camera had been forgotten in the chaos of moving. They didn't pry. They didn't insist. Their oversight had shifted the balance of the household in a single, undeniable moment. Authority had intervened, not with shouting or blame, but with the silent weight of recorded truth. I began to notice subtle shifts in my family. My father lingered a little longer in conversation, offering more than usual, perhaps subconsciously aware that someone had observed. My brother stopped leaving things half-finished, hesitating slightly when I entered the room. Nothing was said, and yet the power dynamic had changed. I wrestled with my own emotions. Resentment gnawed at me, but I couldn't let it spill into confrontation. The victory was mine quietly, internally. I didn't need acknowledgement, apologies, or dramatic confessions. Holding the knowledge was enough. Weeks passed, and life returned to a fragile rhythm. I unpacked the last boxes, hung the final picture frames, and in the quiet evenings, I reflected on what I had seen. Betrayal existed in small, imperceptible moments, yet its presence shifted everything. I could no longer see my family as I once had, but I could move forward, aware and measured, holding my dignity intact. Sometimes, late at night, I would replay fragments of the footage, not out of malice, but out of necessity, as if revisiting the past could clarify the present. I didn't confront. I didn't accuse. I simply observed, silently, letting the weight of knowledge shape the household's rhythms without spectacle. By the time a month had passed, I felt a quiet control settle in, a subtle shift that was both invisible and absolute. I had learned to navigate my father and brother's behaviors with an awareness they didn't suspect. The house was the same, but the atmosphere was different, layered with understanding, restraint, and the unspoken consequences of what had been revealed. In the end, I didn't feel victorious in the usual sense. I didn't celebrate or expose them. There was no dramatic rupture, no moral reckoning, no cinematic confrontation. What remained was internal, a calm certainty, a quiet confidence, and a family unknowingly shaped by the weight of what I alone had seen. The camera, now removed and stored in a drawer, became a symbol. Not of betrayal, not of vengeance, but of the subtle, quiet authority that knowledge can grant. And in that subtlety, I found a form of victory that was neither loud nor cruel, but entirely my own.